Hello everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Vicky and tonight we are reading a classic, The Little Rabbit. This story was written by A.M.Dalmais and illustrated by Paul Durand. Everyone rises early in the heart of the woods. The first ray of sunlight is the signal to get up. All the same, there are some lazy animals. The three hedgehogs, for example, after spending the night looking for snails to eat, carry on sleeping until midday, rolled into balls beneath the honeysuckle. As for the owl, it is impossible to try and get him to open his eyes. He needs his sleep. He spends all night chasing moles and mice. In the clearing, one after another, the animals come to life. Carefully, the butterflies spread their little yellow wings, and the grasshoppers yawn and rub their long legs together. On the moss, the cockchafers stretch out their numb claws, while the neighbours, the birds, smooth down their feathers. Soon the clearing becomes so full of happy noises that even the surly old crow is in a good mood. Even the young ants, who are normally so busy, decide to do their work at a more leisurely pace. On one such beautiful morning, the little rabbits looked very unhappy when they got up. They crept slowly out of their burrow, one by one, following their mother. There was a very sad expression on her face as she emerged into the clearing just beyond a warren. Some distance behind her, one of the little rabbits whispered to his brother, "Do you think he was eaten by the fox?" "That would be awful," his brother shivered in reply. "But I did hear the fox near here last night. I heard him yelping and—" "Don't talk about such things," said a third little rabbit severely. "You'll frighten Mummy." But their mother did not need to overhear the conversation in order to be worried. She was already desperately anxious because one of her children had disappeared the previous evening. And not only that, Father Rabbit, who had gone off in search of the young one, had not returned. They had both been away all night, and there was no telling what had happened to them. "Why have they not come home?" she asked for the 100th time. Perhaps they just lost all. She paused for a moment and thought of the fretful night she had spent in the cosy burrow. She had not slept a wink and had started every noise, while the little rabbits had moved restlessly in their sleep, cuddling next to each other. Now she was feeling so tired that she could hardly keep her eyes open. "Perhaps the squirrels will have some news of them," she called out to her family. "Let's go and ask them." She hopped across the fresh grass in the clearing. The little rabbits followed her and began to play with each other to break the gloom that had fallen over the family. But Mother Rabbit was careful to keep a watchful eye on them. "The squirrels, aren't they?" one of the little rabbits exclaimed, after glancing up into the branches. Mother Rabbit was disappointed, and also rather annoyed. "Those two rascals," she tutted. "They're never there when you need them. They just enjoy teasing or playing tricks all day long. They're a pair of rascals." She was quite upset and her ears twitched with anger and anxiety. She was in such a state that she failed to notice anything else that was happening around her. She did not hear someone approaching through the long grass beyond the clearing. First of all, only a distant noise could be heard. Suddenly, a flock of warbles fluttered up from the bushes, hovered above the green trees, then flew away, whistling and calling out noisily to let everyone know that they had been disturbed. But Mother Rabbit's attention was still fixed on the squirrel's tree. Tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. The sound came closer and closer. The noise was right behind her, but the worried doe did not hear it. Suddenly, the branches of the honeysuckle crackled, waved, and were bent flat as four animals burst into the clearing. There was a large hare with enormous ears, two red squirrels, and the little rabbit. "Here he is! Here he is!" cried the 6 little rabbits when they spotted their brother. Without waiting for permission from their mother, they rushed across to him. "Hey, what are you all going? Stay here!" called poor Mother Rabbit, who had just realized what a commotion was going on. She turned round to stare at her excited children. Suddenly, across the clearing amidst the grass and the buttercups, she recognized her lost child standing next to 2 red squirrels. Then he came lolloping towards her. "Yes," she thought, "there is no doubt. My son has come home." Mother Rabbit forgot her anger and weariness at once. In spite of her stiff legs, she hopped across to meet him. She was so happy and relieved. "My little baby, my own dear baby," she sobbed, stroking his ears affectionately. "Where have you been?" Were you lost? Are you hungry? Tell me, have you seen your father? Mother Rabbit was so impatient she wanted to know everything at once. But the baby rabbit had no chance even to open his mouth before his brothers were jumping and bouncing all around him. Hip, hip, hooray! The little rabbits cried. They danced and ran around him. They wanted to hug him. I said he would come back, one little rabbit said into another's ear. Quickly now, said the doe, turning towards her baby. Tell me, what have you been doing since yesterday? But at the moment the two squirrels interrupted. They had been hiding behind a myrtle bush, where they would not disturb the doe in her moment of reunion. But now they were so curious to hear the little rabbit's story that they came bounding in. Good morning all, chattered the cocky squirrel, fluffing out his tail. Hello, hello, the little rabbits replied distractedly. Those rascals again, sighed the mother rabbit, put out by this new interruption. Don't be cross. After all, we did find him for you, said the thin squirrel in a hurt voice. It was you who unearthed him, exclaimed Mother Rabbit in surprise. Where? How? When? She asked. Ahem, the plump squirrel said. He knew what his imaginative cousin's stories were like. Actually, we met him under the ferns. I knew you must be joking, said the doe. You can never be serious. The thin squirrel looked penitent. Then he turned towards the little rabbit. Now, tell us all about your adventures, please. Everyone wants to hear. Yes, tell us, the 6 little rabbits exclaimed eagerly. They gathered in a ring around their brother and waited for him to start. The young explorer seated himself on a white fluffy tail and began to nibble a piece of clover. When he saw the serious faces turn towards him, he suddenly felt very important. Although he was very relieved to be back, he was determined not to show it. After all, he was not a baby anymore. His mother was not taken in. She had seen the tears glinting in the corners of the little one's eyes, but she pretended not to notice them. I saw a stranger near the old tree stump, the little rabbit began with bravado. I went over to say hello, but he ran off, so I decided to go after him. I'd do better not believe everything my little lad is saying, the doe said to herself, shaking her ears. Who was the stranger? The 6 other young rabbits asked, their eyes round with curiosity. You don't have to look far, he's here, their brother replied, casting a superior glance at them. The baby rabbit waved his paw towards the place where he had last seen the hare. But he wasn't there. What a tease! You're pulling our legs, laughed the 6 rabbits. And they began to dance in a circle around their brother, singing, Fibber, you are a fibber. What a hullabaloo, and how angry the little rabbit was. Fortunately, the 2 squirrels came to his aid. That's not fair, they said. The hare came here with us. He ran faster than anyone. He must have gone and hidden himself. Never mind. Get on with your story, said the doe, coming up to his son and sitting down beside him. After cuffing a few ears, she got them all to be quiet. The rabbits and squirrels took their places again in silence. The hare had not gone very far, put off by the noise and confusion in the clearing. Following the little rabbit's homecoming, he had preferred to hide himself under a bush. From there he looked on in astonishment at the behaviour of the rabbit family. What a fuss over a little walk, he thought to himself. He could not understand why the few hours the baby rabbit had spent away from home should have upset the doe so much. It's very odd, the hare mused. It's only a long time since I saw my mother. In fact, after giving her little one a lot of good advice, the mother hare had simply gone off into the forest and left him to fend for himself. No one could see him where he was hidden, except for a ladybird, who was dozing on a branch above his nose. Meanwhile, out in the middle of the clearing, the baby rabbit was continuing his story. Then I ran after him as quickly as I could. I went so fast the wind was whistling in my ears. I'm sure I broke every record. And if I didn't overtake the hare, that's not because he's better at running than I am, but only because his legs are longer than mine. Coughed his brothers, not altogether convinced. They winked at each other. We've heard his boasting before, said one of them. Then in a single hop, he landed right under the baby rabbit's nose and shouted, You are a big fibber. The baby rabbit sniffed. Did you catch up with the hare? Asked another little rabbit doubtfully. No, I lost sight of him, said the baby rabbit. Then his nose began to twitch so quickly that it became obvious to everyone that he was about to make an important announcement. But suddenly he continued, banging the ground excitedly with his foot. As I wriggled under the ferns, I made a fantastic discovery. His brothers winked at each other again, pretending not to listen to him. Nonetheless, although they tried not to show it, their ears pricked up, for they were determined to learn everything. Yes, I have discovered the cleverest animals in the wood. They carry their houses wherever they go. It's very convenient. They have no need to rush home whenever nightfall falls. They can take shelter whenever it rains or when an enemy approaches. I have named them the little removal men, for they can move on whenever they wish. Hop, 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 hop. Overwhelmed with curiosity, the 6 little rabbits began to hop around their brother, as excited as a swarm of mosquitoes. They all burst out with questions at the same time. What are they, these little removal men? Have they got long ears like us? What do their houses look like? Your tale sounds fishy to me. I think you're telling yarns again. Are they friendly? Do you think they'll come and see us in the clearing? Do they like clover? The little rabbit did not know which question to answer first. He was content, though, to be treated like a hero again. As for his mother, how proud of him she was. Perhaps my son will be an explorer when he grows up, she thought, with a mixture of admiration and fear. How do they carry their houses about? One of the squirrels asked. That sounds very interesting. Do they pull it behind them or push it with their noses? They don't do either, the little rabbit replied with a mysterious nod. They carry them on their backs. As the house is very light, He was not allowed to finish because one of the squirrels interrupted him. But those little removal men of yours are snails. And he fell about laughing. His cousin also doubled up with merriment, and the 2 squirrels staggered about, the buttercups spluttering with laughter. Their fluffy red tails waved in the air like sails of windmills. Mother Rabbit also burst out laughing, but soon resumed her serious manner. Well done, she said to her abashed little son. You have discovered snails. I'll take you to visit them this afternoon if you like, she told the excited children. The 2 squirrels quietened down. They themselves knew the snail so well that they had not been able to believe that, for little rabbits, snails were a great discovery. Tell us what you did next, the other rabbits asked politely. They were being very well behaved with the prospect of a visit to the snails. First, let us sit in the shade. It's too hot on the sun, suggested Mrs. Rabbit. There was not a breath of air in the woods that morning. The leaves on the trees were motionless, the sun's rays shone brightly in the grass, and the mosquitoes buzzed busily around. With a few hops, the whole family settled themselves under the oak. The 2 squirrels ran up onto a low branch and made themselves comfortable for the rest of the story. The little rabbit regained his composure. He put back his head, cleared his throat, and acted as though he were about to deliver a speech. I left the little removal men because the ground was too soggy where they were. He hated getting his paws dirty. So on I travelled, sniffing about as I went. I passed a big black and gold butterfly, 3 dragonflies, and I heard a cuckoo. Then, as I didn't see any sign of the hare, I decided to have a nap. Where did you sleep? Weren't you afraid of the fox? Squeaked the others. Not at all. I am not a coward. I settled myself down in the split trunk of a chestnut tree. What a comfortable place for a nap. It was more airy than our warren, and there was plenty of space. If all 9 of us had been in it, we could still have stretched our paws in comfort. What fun I had! I was wakened out of my sleep by 2 chaffinches who were playing near my bed. Then I saw 3 mice pass by. They made such odd faces I couldn't help laughing. The little rabbit smiled as he thought of it. It was certainly better up in the tree than in our dark, airless hole. Maybe, replied his mother, but the fox or the weasel could have reached you there. It's too dangerous. When you're home— Wait a minute, interrupted the oldest squirrel suddenly. Was your chestnut tree near a mulberry bush? Yes, said the little rabbit, looking up. Why? But that's my chestnut tree, exclaimed the squirrel, because I'm the one who found it first. You mustn't stay there without my permission. Ugh, what a quarrelsome fellow you are, said the baby rabbit scornfully. What happened to you afterwards? Asked his brothers, ignoring the protest of the oldest squirrel. I spent the whole night in the chestnut tree, and when I woke up it was still dark under the trees, but I was able to see my way. The little rabbit left out some of the story. He did not tell them he had spent the night in fear and trembling, and that his heart had thumped at every sound of fear of a wild beast approaching. Suddenly, behind me, there was a very odd noise, the baby rabbit went on. Flop, flop, flop. flop. I've never heard such a sound before. Flop, flop, echoed the other little rabbits, their eyes round and wondering. But why didn't you run away? Why did you stay? Cried his mother. I had no time to escape. A round creature leapt on in front of me. He was just like a little puffing ball. Flop, flop, flop. What was it? Shrieked the little rabbits. What was it? Up in the branches, the two squirrels chattered away to each other in their excitement. He was very peculiar indeed to look at, explained the baby rabbit. He had two big eyes popping out of his head, a double chin, and he was very fat. What colour was his fur? One little rabbit asked, bursting with curiosity. He didn't have any. He was covered all over with lumpy, puffy skin. It was sticky looking. Ugh, cried the rabbits in disgust. Poor thing, thought the squirrels, looking proudly at their own shining coats. What did it do? Asked Mother Rabbit. Well, this great big ball stared at me for a few moments, opening his wide mouth as if he meant to swallow me. Then, puffing out his cheeks, flop, flop, he disappeared under a stone. Phew, gasped the little rabbits. I had hardly recovered from that surprise when I came across, you'll never guess who. The owl, suggested one little rabbit. The hare, said another. The fox, asked the third. Not likely, laughed the baby rabbit. No, I came across 3 hedgehogs. But that's impossible, cried both the squirrels together. They were so astonished that they nearly fell off their branch. Everyone began to shout at once. Those dozers, those lazy fellows. But it's impossible to come across them except at night. But it's true, nodded the baby rabbit. He was terribly pleased at the surprise he had caused. And if you could have seen them, you wouldn't have known them. They were running about, laughing and playing. I'm surprised they didn't give themselves upset stomachs. What with all the worms and caterpillars they were eating at the time. All the rabbits and the squirrels were taken aback. Anyway, I told them of my adventures, the baby rabbit went on, and they explained to me that the little round creature I had met was a toad. Hardly anyone in the woods has met him because he is so shy. He only comes out of his hole at night. You must tell the story to Field Mouse, said Mother Rabbit. She was becoming quite proud of all the adventures and discoveries of her little son. Now, the little rabbit seemed to be in a hurry to get to the end of his tale. Afterwards, I passed under some wild roses and came across the hare, fast asleep. I woke him up and wished him a good day. He was very friendly. We had a fine race back to the clearing, and here I am. And here I am too, said a big deep voice from behind a large tree. Suddenly, Father Rabbit leapt into the clearing. Yes, it's me, I've come back, the big rabbit shouted. Now run for your lives, the fox is behind me. Instantly there was turmoil. In a flash the group was scattered. Whoosh! In a moment the squirrels were high up in the oak tree. Make for the burrow, Father Rabbit ordered his family. Squeak, squeak, look out for the fox, shrilled the tiny mouse as he scurried into the undergrowth. Suddenly, with a crashing of branches and a rustling of leaves, the fox was in the clearing. How big he was, how quickly he moved. Everyone trembled with fear. He had a really wicked look about him, with his pointed nose, his bright eyes, his long teeth which gleamed as he snarled, and his red tail swishing. Ho, hum, I smell rabbits and squirrels too, he growled, sniffing the air. The squirrels trembled high up in the oak tree. What if the weasel should come up here and drive us down to the fox? They shuddered at the thought. Grrr, I'm hungry today, said the fox, licking his lips. He sniffed the grass, picked up the rabbit's scent, and set off after them. Faster, faster, cried Mother Rabbit to her little ones. He'll catch us. Crash! The baby rabbit was running so fast that he tripped over a root and fell on his nose. He jumped up at once and shot off like an arrow. But the fox had gained on him. The little rabbit could almost hear him breathing down his neck. He was well behind the rest of his family now. Help, help, he wailed. From the perch in the tree, the squirrels could see it all happening. They were in despair. He was going to be caught. How awful, sobbed one little squirrel. I've got an idea, said his cousin. He shouted at the top of his voice. Chirr, chirr, chirr. What's that? Growled a voice, the fox in astonishment. He stopped his pursuit for a moment and peered all round to see where the noise had come from. He caught sight of the squirrels and growled. Ah, you rascally squirrels again. You better watch out, he snapped. I'll make a meal out of you two. One for my main course, one for my pudding. Furious at being made a fool of, the fox leapt up at the tree, trying to frighten the squirrels into falling off their branch. He yelped with rage. "You must be mad," the little squirrel reproached his cousin. "You can't laugh at a fox. Look at him. He manages to climb up." "Don't be silly. Foxes can't climb trees," the other squirrel reassured him. "Look, now the little rabbit has some chance to get away." He was right. Thanks to a diversion, the baby rabbit had got ahead. The burrow was not far now. Only 3 big leaps. Hop, hop, hop. The little rabbit dived headfirst down the hole where his family were hiding. Whew. A moment later, the fox was outside, cowering in the warren. The rabbits listened to him sniffling, growling, and yelping just above their heads. The baby rabbit had no wish now to change his earthy refuge for an open, airy home. At length the fox went away, but not before he had snarled down the burrow. "Never mind, I'll lose nothing by putting off eating you till another day." Down in the dark, the little rabbit pressed himself tight against his mother and shivered. He was more frightened than he had ever been in his life. The fox was only away for a few moments when he returned. "It's pointless to hide. I'll catch you for sure," he gloated. He pushed his muzzle down each of the holes round about and beat the nearby bushes with his swishing tail. His eyes were glowing with rage. He yelped with fury, but he could not get at the rabbits. The entrance to the burrow was hidden behind brambles and thorns. At length, growling to himself, the fox skulked off into the woods, his hunger unsatisfied. Down in the burrow, the rabbit family started to breathe again. "You've escaped again," the father rabbit to his young son. But that was how your cousin was eaten last week." The little rabbit hung his head and said nothing. He was not proud now. He was beginning to be ashamed. "You're more disobedient than all of your 6 brothers put together," Father Rabbit went on. No one even coughed in the burrow. When Father Rabbit spoke in such a voice, things were serious. Outside, the fox was gnashing his teeth with fury. One moment he had almost caught the little rabbit, and the next moment his supper had disappeared. "Scratch, scratch. What's that scraping at the entrance?" squeaked Mother Rabbit, becoming very upset again. Hop, hop. 7 little rabbits made straight for their mother's side and started shaking again. Had the fox come back again? Bravely, Father Rabbit made his way to the front door and called out in a loud voice, "Who's there?" A little sing-song voice answered, "It's me, it's me." Phew, everyone sighed with relief. It was only the field mouse. "Come in quickly," said Father Rabbit. "You gave us such a fright." "I'm so sorry," said the field mouse, twitching his nose so comically that the little rabbits couldn't help laughing. "Be quiet now, behave," their father said severely. The little rabbits fell silent and looked serious again. "Now, what's your news?" the rabbit asked the field mouse. You can go out now. It's quite safe," he replied grandly. "I saw the fox make his way across the clearing and go off. He was muttering about going down to the village and preferring chicken to rabbit any day. He said it was better for his stomach." "That's a relief," said Mother Rabbit happily. I only hope it's true," said her husband, rolling his eyes. "What do you mean by that remark?" piped the field mouse, offended. His little black eyes glinted indignantly. "If you don't care to believe me, I'm not coming back here any more with my news." The field mouse made as if to leave in a huff. "Don't upset yourself," said the rabbit, holding him back by his tail. "You know we believe you. Would you like a tasty piece of fruit to eat?" The field mouse, who was a bit of a glutton, didn't need to be asked twice. In an instant his good humour returned. The little rabbits winked knowingly at each other and smiled to themselves. Every time the field mouse came to see them, their father upset him, and every time the field mouse went through the same performance, it always ended happily with Mr. Rabbit offering him something to eat. When I watched the fox go off, I was hiding under an old tree stump. I had hardly left my shelter when who should hop out in front of me but the hare. He didn't look very adventurous this time. He was shaking so much, the poor thing, that his teeth were chattering. He told me that at the sight of the fox he had dived under a fallen log and hadn't moved since. Then he asked me to show him the way back to his farm. I showed him the path which goes past the mulberry bushes, and I even went part of the way with him. Then I came straight here. You're the first ones I've told about the fox's departure." "Thank you very, very much," said Mr. and Mrs. Rabbit. "Would you like some more to eat?" "No, thank you. I've no time to spare," said the field mouse regretfully, or to move on to the others. "Goodbye," called the little rabbits. "Come back soon." "And now," said Mr. Rabbit, turning towards his wife, "what are our plans for this afternoon?" "Well, I promised the children that I'd take them to see the snails," said Mother Rabbit. "Good idea," said Father Rabbit fondly. "Ask the squirrels to go with us. They can see a long way off while they're high in the trees. It's best to be careful. The fox didn't find the entrance to our burrow, but he knows it's somewhere around, and he might come back here this evening, so take care." "What about you?" asked Mrs. Rabbit in surprise. "I'm staying here to keep an eye on this scamp," he said, pointing at the baby rabbit. "He deserves to be punished, so he's not going on the walk. Because of his foolishness, the fox has scared us all out of our wits, and the house is no longer safe." Mother Rabbit was surprised to hear her husband's decision. She said nothing, however, because the son certainly deserves some punishment. "In addition," Mr. Rabbit went on, "while you're all out, I'm going to make a second way out of our burrow. You never know, it might be useful one day. Have a good time, but be careful," he said to his 6 little children as they went out of the house, one by one. Hop, 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 hop. The baby rabbit watched sadly. He dared not say a word, but his heart was heavy. After all, he said to himself, I was the one who discovered the snails. Mum ought to take me with her to make the introductions. But his mother and brothers were already gone. Oh, if only he could have been with them. It must be so nice outside. Meanwhile, his father was hard at work. He was digging a tunnel at the other end of the burrow. As he didn't want to make the house dirty, he was digging his way in from the outside, throwing the earth back with his strong paws. The soil was light and dry at the spot. The earth seemed to fly out among the 2 streams as he worked at the top speed. That's getting along nicely, he said to himself with satisfaction. A little more digging and it'll be finished. Inside the burrow, the baby rabbit was bored. There was no fun at all. He was certainly being punished. I'm not going to go off by myself again, he promised himself. It's rotten to be shut up in here, in the dark, while the others are out there in the sunshine. I bet the clearing is lovely just now. His father descended to the room beside him. That's that, he exclaimed. The tunnel is finished. As he was hot and rather tired, he stretched himself up into the burrow on a little pile of fresh soil. Soon his young son could hear him snoring. Soon the baby rabbit's eyes began to glow and his tail began to twitch. What a chance, he said to himself. He knew that his father was a heavy sleeper. He would sleep for an hour at least. All his good resolutions vanished in a trice. He was determined to go out, if only for a short time. It wouldn't take long. I'll just take a little walk and then I'll come back, the naughty rabbit decided. I'll take a chance. Carefully, he ventured outside the burrow. How good the air was. In the trees, the birds were singing loudly. With a jump and a somersault and 3 hops, he vanished. He'd already forgotten his encounter with the fox. He was happy and in search of fun. I'll go and visit the hare, he said to himself, anxious to see his new friend again. I've just time for a quick trip. As the hare had given him careful instructions how to get to his form, the baby rabbit easily found it. Cuckoo, cuckoo, he called out mischievously when he finally reached the copse of the young fir trees. Shush, shush, chirped Mother Robin, poking out a beak between 2 flowers. You'll wake my little ones. They've only just fallen asleep. I'm sorry, I didn't know you lived here, said the little rabbit. I'd better be quiet. The hare had forgotten to tell the little rabbit that he shared his copse with a whole family of robins. He himself was sleeping so soundly that his friend's call had not disturbed him. Too bad, murmured the baby rabbit. I have to see him another time, when he can stay awake. With a few little hops, he went over to an old tree stump. There he stretched out on the moss, his nose between his paws, and waited patiently. I've got an idea, he said suddenly. I'll go see the ants. There'll be no risk of meeting Mother and the others where they live. And with these words he set off. Hop, hop, hop. He sped through a field of daisies, did a cartwheel or 2 amongst the buttercups, and then galloped down the little path, making straight for the old tree stump. It was there that the ants were making their nest. They hadn't finished their work on it. They were never satisfied and spent their days repairing, decorating, and improving their home. Good day, the little rabbit called out to them, keeping a little way away from fear of startling them. Good day, replied the ants, not even raising their heads for fear of wasting time. They worked very hard and didn't like being disturbed. On the 6 tiny feet they scurried here and there, this way and that, up and down, across, rushing about like tiny little machines. The baby rabbit was fascinated by them, their antics, his eyes bulging, his ears twitching. He never grew tired of watching them. "Look at that great nosy Parker," said an ant to one of his companions. "If he's half as clumsy as his friend the squirrel, we'd best be careful he doesn't knock our house down." The little ants whispered his frightening news to each other. Suddenly all the ants gathered together in a seething mass. Then, as if with a single command, they broke up, formed up into a thick column, and began to circle the startled rabbit. As the parade around him, they began to chant, "Little rabbit, go away, don't come here again today. Don't you dare break down a house, creep away, just like a mouse." "Very funny," the little rabbit replied huffily. "I know when I'm not wanted. You carry on amusing yourselves, I'm off." And with this he hopped away. The baby rabbit strolled between 2 clumps of raspberry bushes, where bees were buzzing busily. He was upset now he hadn't anyone to play with. Suddenly, between the roots of a sapling, he saw a face he didn't recognize. Or was it familiar after all? Head on one side, eyes half closed, a friendly smile on her face, Mrs. Weasel was taking some fresh air at the entrance to her hole. She spied the little rabbit and her mouth began to water. But she was feeling drowsy and not really interested in climbing out of her hole to catch a rabbit. She decided to try and lure him closer. "Good day, my friend," she said sweetly to the baby rabbit. "What do you want here?" At this the little baby relaxed. "Actually, I'm looking for someone to play with me." "Let us play together then," the weasel exclaimed brightly. Forgetting her pretense for a moment, she began to lick her lips. The rabbit was delighted. "Hooray, I'm in luck today. This is a very friendly soul," he said to himself. How trusting he was. The crafty weasel quickly worked out a plan to capture the rabbit. "You know," she said engagingly, "I've thought of a splendid game, but you have to come down into my hole so that I can explain it to you. Come on, I'll show you the way." The little rabbit was finding this person more and more agreeable, but for all that he wasn't going to follow her down any hole. He had a little sense left. "No fear," he thought to himself, "I prefer the open air." And then for no apparent reason he began to have suspicions. "Perhaps this is a trap," he thought, feeling uneasy. "Thank you very much," he said to the weasel. "I must go back home now. My mother is waiting for me." He hopped a short distance away, and at the moment he was deafened by an outburst of a shrill chittering. "Get away quick! Get away quick!" A ruffled-looking warbler flew past his ear. "Don't you know a weasel when you see one?" The rabbit gave a frightened start. "What was that?" "Run quickly and hide yourself in my bush down this path to the left." The warbler shrilled again as it flew past in another swoop. The little rabbit took it to his heels. The weasel flung herself in pursuit. She was very annoyed. "This rabbit is not going to escape me," she growled, gnashing her little pointed teeth. The rabbit shot into the bush so quickly that Mrs. Weasel didn't have a chance of seeing where he had gone. She took the wrong turning and rushed into a bed of stinging nettles. Trembling, the baby rabbit gasped for breath under the warbler's bush. Cautiously, he twitched his ears a few times, poked out his little nose, sniffed the breeze all around the bush, and finally peered out to see if the weasel had gone. No sign of her. What a relief! Here and there the colours of the forest were fading. A cool breeze rustled the branches. It was getting on for nightfall. "I must hurry up and get back home at once," thought the young rabbit in alarm. "Thank you for your help," he called to the warbler. Then he took his to his heels and hop. He was away. He crept quietly down into the burrow when he arrived. "Father's still asleep," he muttered with relief. The little rabbit was delighted. "For a change, I've had an adventure without getting into trouble." Hoppity-hop, hoppity-hop. He could hear the noise of many feet overhead. The rest of the family were returning. Our little hero curled up in a corner and pretended to be fast asleep. "Hello, hello, here we are," cried Mrs. Rabbit and the other children. Father Rabbit woke up in a good mood. "This little fellow hasn't moved once," he said, pointing to his young son. "Oh, the little angel," said Mrs. Rabbit, going over to him. The naughty young rabbit opened one eye, but didn't say a word. "For a reward, we'll take you for a walk around the clearing before we go to bed," suggested his mother. "Good idea," said Mr. Rabbit. "I could do with some exercise." And the whole family scrambled out of the burrow and hopped off into the clearing. The air was perfumed, the chestnut blossoms trembled in a slight breeze, and the daisies danced. Butterflies flitted to and fro between the flowers. The tomtits were chattering away in the branches of a big oak tree. It's a full moon tonight. Yes, tonight a full moon. Isn't it exciting? The 7 little rabbits were very thrilled. Can we go out this evening as well? They squeaked at their mother. Yes, if you behave yourself, she replied. The little rabbits jumped for joy. They loved being out in the moonlight when the clearing seemed to be full of blue light, and even in the middle of the night it was possible to see every detail. On their best behaviour, the rabbits played amongst the flowers. Tweet, tweet. The warbler, who had been flying round the myrtle bush, spotted the baby rabbit, banked and fluttered over to him. Are you feeling better now? She asked him. What a giveaway! The little rabbit pretended he hadn't heard her. Snap! He bit off a crisp dandelion shoot and began to crunch it up. But the wobbler would not be put off. You got back home safely then? You didn't see the weasel again? His ears twitching frantically, the little rabbit tried to signal to the wobbler to be quiet. But she was so silly that she went on. Tweet, tweet, tweet. What's that she's saying? Asked Father Rabbit suspiciously. The little rabbit was well and truly called out. Head hanging, he had to tell the truth. And this time it was no fun at all to recount his adventures. It was a solemn group which made its way back to the burrow. The young scamp had no doubt at all that he would not be allowed to go out and play in the moonlight that evening. He sighed deeply. In the woods, the bats were just leaving their nests and sweeping through the trees. The moon was climbing in the sky and playing peekaboo with the clouds. A nightingale's song could be heard echoing sweetly in the woods. While their brother sat in one of the corner, the other 6 little rabbits gathered round Mr. Rabbit. He told them the hair-raising stories about the fox. As night fell, Mr. Rabbit went out by himself. I'm going to pay someone a visit, he said mysteriously to his wife. And then he whispered something into her great ear. The little rabbits only heard the word badger, and they were intrigued. When the father came back, he took them straight up into the clearing for the long-awaited walk. The disobedient young rabbit stayed at home with his mother. Eventually he decided to go to sleep and closed his weary eyes. Perhaps he began to dream that he was playing with his friend the hare. Good night, little rabbit. The next morning at first light, the field mouse, his eyes glittering and whiskers all groomed, came out of his nest. He scuttled towards the hawthorns. On the way he sang a happy little song to himself, and his long tail waved merrily. Croak, croak. You look very pleased with yourself this morning. Field mouse, a crow called out, rather enviously. What's up? That's no business of yours, the field mouse replied sharply, and disappeared amongst the bushes. He eventually reached a hawthorn where he sat down, whistled through his teeth, and called out, Good morning, lazy bones. At these words, 3 saucy little lady mice poked their heads up from amongst the white flowers. You very naughty to wake us up so early, they cried very peeved. We can't even get to sleep in peace. And they went off to bed. All right, said the field mouse. If that's the way you feel, my friend, I won't bother you to tell you the latest news. Oh, please do, begged the 3 mice, who reappeared at once, full of curiosity. They had forgotten all about bed. They were all very much alike. 3 peas in a pod, the same eyes, same tail, same whiskers, only the colour of their fur was different. One was white, one was black, and the third was grey. Well, well, said the white mouse, her eyes twinkling. Your nose is twitching a lot, Uncle Field Mouse. You must have some important news. Perhaps, said the field mouse with a mysterious nod. It amused him to see the mice dancing with impatience. But he was not able to keep a secret for long. He burst out. The rabbit family has moved house. When? Where? How? Patience, ladies, said the field mouse pompously. The rabbits have moved because the fox found out where they were living. Oh dear, cried the 3 little mice, cowering nervously against each other and looking round. But how did Mr. Rabbit dig himself a new house so quickly? The black mouse asked in surprise. He has no need to dig a new one, the field mouse replied happily. How was that? Asked the grey mouse impatiently. I think you're laughing at us, Uncle. Everyone knows that rabbits live in burrows. Yes, you're having us on, her 2 sisters agreed. They pouted their lips, wrinkled their noses, and glared at their uncle. It's as simple as day, explained the field mouse. It was the badger, whom you find such an unpleasant neighbour, who sorted it all out. Three incredulous faces greeted his news. The little mice loathed the badger. During the day he was not as bad because he stayed at home, but at night it was another matter. He went for long walks and woe betide anyone who got in the way of the big clumsy fellow. He spread all around himself a strong, unpleasant smell, and that wasn't the only thing. It was not too bad for the other woodland dwellers. As soon as they saw the badger's black and white face between the trees, they took particular care to stay well out of his way. But more important, he was an insatiable glutton. He tore into, attacked, and gorged himself in everything he could find. Slugs, clover, honeysuckle, snails, caterpillars, shrews, and even field mice. It was a mixed menu. The badger was a strange character, grumpy, rude, and taciturn. He hated visitors. He had no time for small talk, and he lived a solitary life in an enormous underground warren, full of side passages stocked up with food. Somehow it seemed that this fellow had helped the rabbits. "I don't understand," said the grey mouse. "What did the badger do?" "Well, he's a bit odd," said the field mouse. Father Rabbit went to see him in despair at nightfall and asked him if by any chance he knew of an empty burrow. He was sure that the badger would throw him out, but no, on the contrary. The badger certainly grumbled. He's never very friendly, as you know, and he was angry at being disturbed, but he showed the rabbit the warren which had been vacated by his cousin, a deaf old badger who had gone off to another part of the woods. "Where is this place?" asked the sisters. "Very near here," replied the field mouse, "near the mulberry bushes." "Have the rabbits moved already?" asked the mice, full of excitement. "Yes, they moved in last night. It was wiser to do it at once. They used the moonlight to help them. They're really settled in now. In spite of the smell, they find it convenient. They'll stay there until Mr. Rabbit builds a better one for the family." "Well, well, so the old home is empty," remarked the black mouse thoughtfully, her eyes gleaming. "Why do you ask?" inquired the field mouse, sensing trouble. His nieces were always plotting mischief. "Oh, nothing," said the black mouse with an air of unconcern. Growled the field mouse, brushing his nose with his two little paws. He wondered what his nieces would be up to when his back was turned. He felt rather apprehensive. "Whatever it is, I'll find out soon enough," he sighed to himself. "Goodbye for now," he said to his nieces. "I'm on my way." Hardly had the field mouse disappeared than the little black mouse popped out of the hawthorn bush. She yawned, stretched, twitched her ears, dotted about a few times in the grass, then sat down in front of her sisters. In a squeaky voice she said, "I have an idea. Let's go and have a look at the rabbit's old burrow." She was by far the most inquisitive of three sisters. When she wanted to explore, she was afraid of nothing. She poked her nose in here and there, wherever the fancy took her. Once she had even fallen down the weasel's hole. What an escapade that had been! She had just escaped without being eaten, and even that had not cured her of her curiosity. "How thrilling!" exclaimed the white mouse, very pleased with the idea. She was the most talkative of the three. From morning to night her tongue never stopped wagging. She prattled to everyone, to butterflies, birds, insects, ants. Everyone was her friend. She told story after story to the squirrels or rabbits or the field mice. Idle gossip was her speciality. Anything of little importance. One night her tongue had led her into serious trouble. An owl was hooting as it flew about the oak trees, and the stupid white mouse had answered his call. The owl had pounced on her immediately, and she had not moved like in a flash. He would have had her for his supper. But she still went on chatting. Her eyes gleamed and her tail twitched at the thought of all they would have had to talk about after they had visited the burrow that the rabbits had just left. "No, no, 1,000 times no," the grey mouse exclaimed. "It's out of the question. I will not leave here before midday. The field mouse woke us up too early. I must catch up on my sleep. It's too early to be up and about." And she yawned daintily, her paw over her open mouth. She was a real lazybones. Her two sisters tried to think up some good reason why she should rouse herself and come up with them on their adventure. She was so lazy that she had nearly been eaten as a result of it one night. She had been stretched out in the grass while the others were playing, and when they spotted the badger coming, she had not noticed their shrill cries of alarm. She had only just scrambled away in time, but she too was not cured by this experience. She remained just as lazy as ever. "No, thank you," she repeated. "I'm going to sleep. Good night." The bold mouse and the talkative mouse stared at her in frustration. "She thinks of nothing but sleep," cried the black mouse angrily. "Wait, see if she doesn't change her mind," said the white mouse. She ran up to her grey sister and said in a wheedling tone of voice, "If you come with us to the rabbit's old burrow, you can have a fine sleep. No one will disturb you. Here, on the other hand, you'll be woken up soon by the bees coming to the hawthorn flowers. Their buzzing will disturb you. Come with us, you won't be sorry." The lazy mouse opened one eye, heaved a sigh and said, "Oh, all right then, I'll come, as long as it's not too far." "It's very close, you'll see," urged the white mouse. Hop, 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 the little scamperers set out together, first the white mouse, then the black mouse, and last the lazy little grey mouse. As they went along, the black mouse scurried here and there, her eyes open wide, her ears twitching. Nothing escaped her notice. "Ha, ha," she exclaimed, peering at the expanse of grass. "The hedgehogs have been here. I recognize their tracks. The squirrels as well. Here are some hairs from their coats caught up on this twig. What do you suppose they're doing here?" "Good morning, Ladybird," exclaimed the white mouse. "Did you know that the rabbit family has moved? No? Well, let me tell you about it." Chatter, chatter, chatter. The little gossip began a long tale, punctuated with squeaks and nods of her head. The ladybird flew away long before the end, but the mouse didn't even notice. "Will we get there soon?" sighed the grey mouse. She was dragging her feet, walking well behind her sisters. "We've only this clearing to cross now," answered her sisters. The clearing was deserted. Only a few grasshoppers were about, jumping from flower to flower, perching for a while on a stalk, dozing in the sun, and then hopping off again. Surrounded as they were by jungle of tall grass, the three mice watched enviously as the grasshoppers jumped freely above their heads, out in the open, twisting and leaping from one good lookout point to another. Soon the mice reached the rabbit's burrow. Swish, 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 the mice slid down into the burrow, head over heels, one after the other, and landed at the bottom. "My, it smells fresh," cried the lazy mouse. She began to feel in a better mood. Without any more ado, she stretched out on damp earth, put her head on her paws, and began to doze. Her sisters could not contain themselves. They ran, they pried, they examined every corner, noses twitching and tails whisking excitedly. "Have you seen this funny cupboard?" asked one of them. "That must have been the food cupboard," her sister replied. "Oh, but it's quite empty, not a crumb. They've taken all the food. Here's another way out. Well, I wonder why." "Look down here," interrupted her sister. But before they had time to look at anything, a loud pounding noise came from above their heads. The grey mouse woke up at once. The other two looked at her, petrified. Boom, 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 bang, bang. What a racket! It sounded like a dozen thunderstorms put together. The earth's trembling, quivered a little white mouse. "What's going to become of us?" sobbed her sisters, huddling close. Bang, thump, scrabble. A shower of earth fell into the burrow. Whatever could be happening? Crash! This time the burrow collapsed completely. Above their heads, the mouse could suddenly see the big brown paws and the hairy muzzle of the fox. Panic-stricken, they let out loud, piercing shrieks. "Mercy, help us, help!" The fox, surprised to find mice instead of rabbits, was taken aback. A moment, then he began to scramble over the earth towards them. Jubilantly he cried, "What a pleasant surprise to meet you here, my little ones. It's a long time since I had a good meal of mouse." His eyes gleamed, his mouth watered, and his teeth showed in a greedy grin as he came towards them. He clicked his teeth together and opened his mouth wide, prepared to go up with the unexpected morsel. But the mice did not intend to be Fox's breakfast. The three sisters scuttled to the side of the hole, rushed up over the heap of earth, and darted away in different directions like drops of quicksilver. Bewildered by the speed of their movements, the fox didn't know which way to pounce. He pushed one paw out to the right, he thrust another out to the left, and missing both, he began to plunge wildly to and fro. But as the little scampers could turn faster than he could, they escaped him easily and vanished into the woods. It was a terrible disappointment to the hungry fox. Terrified and panting, the mice fled into different directions. For the first time in their lives, they were separated from each other. The white mouse ran towards the oak tree where the birds lived. The black mouse found herself amongst the raspberry bushes. The grey mouse rushed across the clearing. When they realised they were out of danger, they stopped and began to look around for each other. When they saw they were alone, each of them began to cry. They were so feather-brained that it didn't occur to them simply to make their way back to the nest, where they would meet each other again. "Ah, I have an idea," cried the little white mouse. "I'll ask the butterflies for their advice." And delighted with this thought, she went off, her nose in the air. Her scampery soon brought her to a large bed of flowers. Here, there, was a family of butterflies, with white wings and black spots. Throughout the woods they were renowned for their wisdom. "Cooey!" cried the mouse as soon as she spotted them. They were sitting still amongst the blossom. Their own colours were so clear and bright that it might have been possible to mistake them for flowers as well. Strangely, today they were still and listless, hardly moving. "What is the matter with you?" asked the little mouse in surprise. The butterflies fluttered over to her, their beautiful wings shimmering. "It's the cocoon," they called to in excited voices. "That villain, that thief, has eaten 2 of our little ones." They were hardly out of their chrysalis when the greedy ogre gobbled them up. The mouse was quite shocked by the news and fell silent. For once she couldn't find anything to say. "But why have you come to see us?" asked the butterflies. "And where are your sisters?" "I've lost them," cried the mouse in a quivering voice. "Because of that fox, he almost ate us." Then tearfully she told them a story. "What shall I do to find them again?" she asked through her tears. "If I were in your place," said one butterfly, spreading wide his spotted wings, "I'd go and find the old field mouse. He knows everyone. He ought to be able to find them for you." "Good idea," agreed the others. "Go and find the field mouse." The mouse had no real wish to see her uncle, because he was certain to give her a good telling off. However, she agreed, as she couldn't come up with a better idea. "Thank you, you're right," she said to the butterflies. "I must hurry. Goodbye. See you again soon." And she left as quickly as she had come. While all this was going on, crouched under a mulberry bush, the black mouse was listening for sounds of her sisters. She was very upset at having lost contact with them. Perhaps the fox caught them, she thought. She would have returned to their home if she had known which way to go. Suddenly she had a happy thought, and like an arrow she fled towards the chestnut trees. Once there, she made her way in amongst the ferns, right to the very heart of them, where she stopped, sat down, and called out top of her voice, "Good morning!" "Who is that?" growled the voice above her head. "Please be quiet." And suddenly a huge spider, hanging on the end of a thread of web, dropped down in front of her nose. It was Grandmother Spider, a very nimble old spider too. She swung in the end of the thread, her legs waving about in all directions. "What do you want, little mouse?" she asked impatiently. "Why are you disturbing me? Can't you see I'm very busy? I'm keeping an eye on my granddaughter. She's trying to make her first web. She's making such a mess of it, it's driving me to distraction. Come on anyway, tell me what you want." The mouse was so fascinated by the movements of the granddaughter spider that she failed to hear the old spider's question. She said the young apprentice, who was spinning her silk and little by little building into a web with her 8 busy little legs. She fastened and laced it, tied it, shaped it into real work. It was fascinating, and the black mouse's mouth open, watched it all. "Are you deaf?" shouted the grandmother. "I asked you why you came." The mouse jumped. "Oh, I'm sorry," she exclaimed. "I came to see you because I've lost my sisters. I don't know how to find them." "Ugh, more stupidity. I might have known," grumbled the spider. "Listen to me, you silly little mouse. If I was in your place, I'd go to the field mouse. He will know where your sisters are." "That's true," said the mouse quietly. But she didn't want to see her uncle because of the scolding she would get. However, after thanking the grandmother spider, the black mouse set off, reluctantly in the direction of the field mouse's home. Meanwhile, what had become of the lazy grey mouse? After her first panic-stricken flight, she hid herself near an old log. Then she had a little sleep, just to help her feel better again. When she woke up, she blinked, washed her grey paws, then her tail, looked all around, and seeing nothing suspicious, lay down again in the grass with her eyes half shut. "It's hardly worth moving, since I don't know where to go," she told herself lazily. "The other 2 could find me better than I could find them." And comfortably settled, she lay there and passed the time watching the antics of a group of mosquitoes. Time passed and no one came. The grey mouse began to get impatient. "Surely they wouldn't leave me all day," she said nervously. "I don't like being alone." "Good morning, friend. What's up?" asked an ant who was passing by, carrying a large seed on his back. "Oh, Mr. Ant, spare me a moment, please. I don't know where my two sisters are, neither the black one nor the white one. Would you be kind enough to go and find them and tell them to come here for me?" The ant was astounded. "Go and find them yourself," he replied firmly. "I'm so tired," sighed the grey mouse, "and I don't know where to go. Please help me." The ant put down his burden. "Listen," he said more gently. "I can't do what you want. I've got a lot of work to do, and I must get back at once to my nest. I've got food to put in our granary. After that, I'll have to have a quick lunch. Then it's time to sweep out the passages. Then it'll be time to feed the babies who have just been born. In addition, it's my turn today to clean the bedrooms." "What a list of jobs!" exclaimed the grey mouse, very impressed by this recital. She looked with admiration at the tiny ant who was standing before her, beside his grain of wheat. "If I were you," the ant continued, "I'd go to the field mouse. He knows everyone. He'll help you find your sisters. He's a clever fellow." "That's a good idea," said the mouse. "But it'll be tiring. It's so warm, and I've been up since dawn." "Never mind. Cheer up," said the ant encouragingly. "I must be off now, or I'll be late. Goodbye, Mr. Ant. See you soon." Sighing heavily, the mouse set out. Her feet felt like lead and her eyes were heavy. She wished she could have asleep. It was no fun to go a long walk by yourself. On the way, she passed the 3 hedgehogs asleep in the shade of the hazel bush. "Some people have all the luck," muttered the lazy mouse enviously. She sobbed with frustration. She took a few slow paces forwards, paused, went back a few steps, had a rest, then went down again in the same way. To the great satisfaction of a snail, after a walk on the same path as the mouse, he overtook her and went ahead. "Hello, hello. At this rate I'll soon be a match for the hare," he said as he went past. The mouse was half asleep and didn't notice him. Exhausted, she arrived at last at the field mouse's nest. Bushes grew over the entrance. The field mouse was sitting outside his house when she arrived. "Where have you been?" asked the field mouse in surprise. "And where are your sisters?" The grey mouse was just about to explain when up the path rushed the white mouse, quite out of breath. "Another one! And what have you got to say?" growled the field mouse. "Come on, explain yourselves." Just then the black mouse poked her nose discreetly round a blackberry bush. "Well, well, this is even better," said the field mouse, raising his eyebrows. "What's going on? Why are you looking so guilty?" Bit by bit, with ashamed looks, the lost campers told their story. "You're incorrigible, all of you," shouted the field mouse. "As soon as I turn my back, you're up to mischief. I don't know what to make of you." But the 3 little mice were so glad that everything was all right again that they hardly listened to their uncle. Only a few words caught their ears: unforgivable, disobedient, mischievous, punish. They even began to chat amongst themselves, and the end said to me, "And you know there was a little spider who—" "Are you listening, you empty heads?" shouted the furious field mouse. "Suppose a fox had eaten you? That would have been the end of all of you." The 3 mice looked downcast. "I hope you'll never do that again," said the field mouse severely. "Oh no, never," they all promised. Said the field mouse. "We will see. Anyway, to show me how good you are, do me a favour." "Yes, of course," answered the mice. "What do you want us to do?" "It's very simple," said the field mouse. "Go and find the squirrels. They'll be in their tree. Tell them that the hare wants to meet them tomorrow morning near the bird's oak tree. He wants to ask them something important. Tell them to be there. That's all. But pay attention now. No nonsense this time," concluded the field mouse, his voice half serious, half amused. "When you have delivered the message, mind you go straight home to bed afterwards." "Yes, Uncle Field Mouse, we'll go at once. Goodbye, Uncle Field Mouse." Hop, hop, hop. Away went the little 3 scampers. They ran swiftly between the buttercups. They were very proud to be chosen as messengers, and they felt happy then after their adventures. "I wonder what the hare wants to say to the squirrels," mused the white mouse, full of curiosity. "Don't be nosy," laughed the black mouse. "Shall I tell you what I told the butterflies?" "What about my afternoon nap?" interrupted the grey mouse. At last the mice reached the tree where the squirrels lived. "Come down, squirrels," they all 3 cried together. "What is it?" "A very important message from the field mouse," they answered. In 2 flashes the squirrels were down in the grass beside them. The mice repeated the message from the field mouse. "Very well," the squirrels said. We'll be at the bird's oak tree tomorrow. It's very mysterious, said the youngest squirrel, after the mice had left. What can a hare want to say to us? I've been asking myself that, said the other squirrel, turning her head over heels. After all these happenings, you never know, do you? Let's get back to our game, said his cousin. We've got all afternoon to play. Tomorrow will soon come. And the two acrobats went back to playing in the trees. On the other hand, the three mice remembered their uncle's words of warning, went straight home to bed like good girls. And that was the end. Hope you enjoyed that long story. Sweet dreams, and see you tomorrow.